Hey everybody, I'm back and I have another book review for you. I honestly forgot I had a bunch of books on my bookshelf waiting to be reviewed. Was thinking about getting some at the library next time I took the girls, and I happen to remember I have about 6 novels sitting on my bookshelf waiting for me to read them and to give them reviews, because these authors are actually out there and they're writing books and they're publishing books right now. So I pulled one off my shelf. It's Out of the Gray by Patricia Gilliam. Chris and I had the good fortune to sit next to Miss Gilliam and her husband at Fanboy Expo Nashville Comic Con last May, and we got to talking. She told me about her books, I told her about mine, and over the weekend I got really interested in the book, so I made sure to get it before we left that weekend. Unfortunately, I already had 2 or 3 books that I was going to be reviewing then, so I just put it on the bookshelf when we were unpacking, and then I forgot that I had it and a few others waiting in line, and I picked it up a few days ago. So let's get into the review. The premise. What would humanity do if first contact with an alien species went well? Would we welcome them with open arms, act welcoming while watching their every move with suspicion, or would we declare all-out war? Out of the Gray gives one possible outcome to such a first contact, where most of humanity welcomed contact with the Hunarians, who seemed like rather friendly, if long-lived, and highly advanced neighbors. Not everybody's so trusting, though, and for them, every offer of help or exchange of any kind seems like a means of soft invasion. Alex is the son of a politician bent on preventing such an invasion. Enrica is a Hunarian child adopted and raised by human parents until it becomes obvious she's not human, she's Hunarian. Alex and Rika get caught up in the crossfire when the Earth Independence Party attempts to incite all-out war, and in the standoff they've been in with the Hunarians for the last 2 centuries. I'm going to give the premise 5 stars. It's interesting, and it's a little bit different than you normally see in these types of books. Let's go to world building. Gilliam really didn't do a huge amount of world building, which makes sense. I mean, it's set on Earth. Almost everything happens on Earth in the year 2300. So it's really not that far into the future, and it's on Earth. The majority of the changes, of course, technology has advanced. There's a little bit of change in the society as a whole, but on the majority of things still work the way they do now. It's very recognizable as the U.S. What details she does include pack a punch, though. Using Alex and Rika to tell the story allowed Gilliam to include bits and pieces of Hunarian culture and politics and the human side of things in a way that's organic and natural, because they're kids. They're kids just really learning about the world, and they're seeing it through the eyes of their parents and other adults around them. So I'm going to give the world building 4 stars. Let's go on to Deus Machina. As usual, here's where things get a little bit tricky when I'm trying to talk about a book without giving spoilers. See, there's this bioweapon that's talked about toward the end of the book, and it becomes very critical along with its antidote. For what it does for the story, it works, but it's not the most plausible thing when you talk about how it's explained. But this is the first novel of a series, and authors don't spill their secrets in the first book. So there's a good chance there are connections between humanity and the Hunarians that we don't know about that are going to make this bioweapon and the way it's explained make a lot more sense. So I'm going to give Gilliam the benefit of the doubt on this, at least until I read more of the series. So I'm going to give her 4 stars for Deus Machina. Let's go on to writing. As a rule, I'm not a big fan of the first person point of view. Not in fiction anyway. It's easy for it to become confusing if the author ever changes perspectives. Gilliam works around this problem by sticking to the same perspective through the entirety of each chapter, and she labels the beginning of the chapter with the character from whose perspective she's going to be writing, and she really only sticks to 2 of them, Alex and Rika. So that helps keep it from being confusing, at least up toward the end of the book, where you start having Alex and Rika in some of the same scenes. Then it can get a little bit dicey. But since she lets you know at the beginning of the chapter who she's talking through, you can still keep it straight. Aside from the voice issue, Gilliam's writing is very concise and clear without being sparse on details, so I'm going to give her a 5-star rating for writing. Let's go on to characters. In a series like this where you have a lot of characters, it can be easy for all of them to start sounding the same. They don't now of the Grey, though. Each character, human or Hanarian, is distinct. All of them have their flaws and they have their good points, and Gilliam does a good job portraying all the shades of grey in the characters, both good and bad. One problem I had wasn't so much with the characters as it was the old cover for the book and a misunderstanding that occurred when I was listening to her talk about the story, and she was pointing to this cover while we were sitting there talking at Nashville Comic Con. And, you know, that's kind of understandable. It's a convention, it's loud, it's busy, a lot of things are going on. So some things get lost in translation or you just don't hear it very well. And I got the old cover. And I do remember them talking about changing the cover while we were there, and going back through it, it makes a lot of sense as to why they did. Because as you can see on the cover that I have here, there's this stereotypical strong female protagonist figure on the front, and I kept expecting her to show up in the book. In fact, at first when I read the name Alex, I read it as short for Alexandria versus Alexander. So that caused a little bit of confusion reading the first chapter until I realized this is talking about a guy and not a teenage girl. So I had to change the image in my head, and then I kept expecting her to show up somewhere throughout the rest of the book, because generally if you have a figure on the cover, it's a character that's important to the story. But that character doesn't exist. There's nobody that fits that description in the book. So it was a little confusing, and I could see why they would go back and change the cover at a later date. But that was me judging a book by its cover, even though I know better than to judge a book by its cover. So I'm still going to give the characters 5 stars because she really did do a good job. On to pacing. The book is very quick paced. It starts off with a couple of bored teenagers meeting in a break room while their parents duke it out on the debate floor, but that's pretty much the only time you're going to experience that emotion in this book. Gilliam does a good job of moving from one plot point to another without letting the story get bogged down or become less interesting. In fact, I spent several days after I finished this book just busting my butt trying to catch up on work and chores, because my little 20-minute reading breaks turned into 3 or 4 hour chunks before I realized what was going on and that much time had passed. Normally it takes me a week or more to read a book of this length because I don't allow myself more than a half hour or so a day for recreational reading, and I finished Out of the Grey in 2 days. So that speaks not only to its pacing, but to its interest. So I'm going to have to give it 5 stars. Now to the ending. Gilliam ties up all the loose ends, at least with slip knots that can be either tightened or loosened in the next book. Then she serves up a twist in the last few pages and sets up the second novel in the series without making the first feel unfinished. So I'm going to have to give her 5 stars on the ending. Now on to the overall rating. As soon as I finished this book, I went ahead and I read the little preview to the second book that's in the end of the novel, and my fingers were itching to get on Amazon and buy the next book of the series. So if you know anything about the way I translate the star system, you know what my rating's already going to be. It's 5 stars. Really solid read, a whole lot of fun. I really do recommend it. So if you get the chance, go out and get Out of the Grey by Patricia Gilliam. You won't regret it. That's it for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed the review, and I hope you find it helpful. If you like this kind of stuff and would like to see more of it, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.